Hello, I'd like to introduce you to the group in case there are other people like me who was not really, you were not on my radar until fairly recently, and I'm embarrassed to say, but
It's
for
really okay.
others out there
It's
who
all right.
might not know you, Jane Leavy grew up in Long Island as a Yankees fan, where she pitched briefly and, according to her website, poorly for the Blue Jays of the Roslyn, Long Island Little League. She graduated from Barnard College and the Columbia University Graduate School of Journalism, where she wrote her master's essay, later published in the Village Voice, which I don't think a lot of us can claim, on Red Smith, the late sports columnist for the New York Times, who was a childhood hero. She has two adult children and lives in Washington, D.C. and Truro, Massachusetts. Jane began as a staff writer for a couple women's publications before moving to the Washington Post from 1979 to 1988. She covered baseball, of course, but also things like tennis and the Olympics for the sports section. She also wrote features for the style section about sports as well, politics and pop culture, including profiles of comic Danny Kaye, Jane Fonda, and National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane. She has written for many publications, including the New York Times, Newsweek, the Los Angeles Times, the New York Daily News, Sports Illustrated, Newsweek, and others. Now, she is an award-winning former sports and feature writer who is the author of multiple New York Times bestsellers, including The Big Fella, Babe Ruth and the World He Created, The Last Boy, Mickey Mantle and the End of America's Childhood, Sandy Koufax, A Lefty's Legacy, and the comic novel Squeeze Play, which Entertainment Weekly called, and I quote, the best novel ever written about baseball, which, end quote, which is quite the claim. Jane's books are known for diving into a subject and emerging with work that is both meticulously researched and narratively rich, both qualities to which I can attest after reading extensively in her books over the last 10 days. Her most recent book is Make Me Commissioner. I Know What's Wrong with Baseball and How to Fix It, which just came out on September 9th. I'm very proud to welcome Jane to the 7th Annual Women in Baseball Conference and discuss your career and new book. So I'd like to start by clarifying whether your book title is a real pitch for the job or just a catchy title.
Let's put it this way. I can't do any worse than Rob Manfred, can I? You're supposed to laugh. Thank you. There's the applause. Come on.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a really good title. It's also probably the most provocative thing in the book. I don't go after him because
No.
it's just not who I am. And what's more, it's too easy a target. It would just be too easy. And frankly, it's not all his fault. It took a lot of decades of laissez-faire, that's a polite way of putting it, leadership to avoid dealing with problems that probably all of us saw coming because, excuse me, Gary and whoever else is on it, because we're women and we see first. What can I say? It didn't take a genius to when the NBA and the NFL decided to, do streaming and combine forces and, and join forces with all the money to realize that Major League Baseball was still stuck in the RSN world, the regional sports network world, and that was going to crash. Everybody knew that was going to happen. And certainly Major League Baseball knew it was going to happen. They just didn't do anything about it. So the impetus for this was a conversation on the veranda of the Blessed Otesaga Hotel in Cooperstown with Mr. Koufax and Mr. Torrey. I was not there as a reporter, okay? I was giving a speech and I was, and you're not supposed to write notes or ask for autographs or do anything like that at the Otesaga. It's like a religious experience. you just have to sit there and like that. And so I can't tell you exactly what they said. I wish I could. I wish I had I had that kind of memory. All I can tell you is that at some point, Sandy leaned over to Joe and said, "They have no idea where the fucking ball is going." And then Joe said, "No, and nobody knows how to hit it either." And then they had for about 30 seconds, they went on back and forth. It was like baseball speaking in tongues, talking pitcher and catcher, pitcher, hitter, talking about, well, the pitchers were doing this and that forced the batters to do that. And Joe is like, he's like, they have to lean across the plate and da 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 da. And at some point, Joe looks up and says, "Hard to watch." Now, he was still employed by MLB at the time, and he looked at me like, and then Sandy said, "I don't watch." And this is 2019. This is pretty much right at the beginning of, the debacle that baseball was becoming. And I thought, okay, that's the story. I had looked for, in vain, I might say, another big guy, or big gal to write about who hadn't been done in a way that, and that's a kind of like horrible phrase that writers use, "been done by," and it's like, it's kind of gross, but who hadn't been written about in a way that I thought it was could be improved upon. I mean, there's some books I just don't think you can bring anything to, and why bother to try? People do it all the time, and they write what's known as clip jobs. Every 20 years or so, somebody will say, "Oh, we need another Mickey Mantle biography," and somebody will do it, and there's nobody to talk to, and all like that. I mean, Richard Ben Kramer's book on Joe DiMaggio is one of those, in my opinion. Whether you like it or didn't like it, or whether you feel he besmirched, the sainted Joe, who was a complete shit. Um, I say this as a woman who was subjected to some of his shittiness. It's a great book. It's just a brilliant book. And I also won't write about somebody who has been written about by a friend. Whether I think the friend's book is good or bad, I'm just not going there. So when I took all those people out of that equation, I looked around and I said, who is there? I made a vain stab at doing the core four. What dealing with one agent was bad. Dealing with four agents was impossible. I didn't, no. Okay, that's just I'm too old for that. Um, it was suggested that I do Mariano Rivera, the last great closer. Well, I don't speak Spanish, and I don't think it's ethical or responsible for somebody who doesn't speak Spanish to try to speak to, about, and with other people in his life, not in his native tongue. So I said, no, get somebody Spanish to do it, or at least somebody fluent, Um, and as I watched, I had this memory. This is I gather I'm the warm-up speaker, so I brought my vodka, not that. Um, my dad was an entertainment lawyer in New York City. He was the son of a bookie and a rum runner, who died young, so I never met him. His name was Aby. And Aby supplied all the hooch to the polo grounds during Prohibition, and he took a lot of bets. And apparently he did well enough that, as in gratitude, his son, my dad, Morton Malcolm Leonard Levy, you got the extra middle name if you survived the Spanish flu, was granted the honor of being the water boy for the New York Football Giants in 1927. Now, I know other people think that other things happened in 1927, but in my family, only one thing happened in 1927. Little Morty came off Coogan's Bluff, came down onto that, swale of green grass, and he was hooked. That was it. He was a New York Giants fan and a New York Giants fan, and he was crushed when they went to San Francisco, and he was crushed when the New York Giants became what the New York Giants now are. I'm sort of glad he didn't live to see how bad it really is, but that's another matter. In his capacity as an entertainment lawyer, he represented, among other things, and people, a guy named Peter Lawrence, whose name is insignificant, but his job was he owned and operated the equipment that allowed Mary Martin to fly in Peter Pan. And after she finished a run on Broadway, my sister and I were invited to fly in her flying equipment. And first we went backstage, and this was not on a Broadway stage. This was in a high school gym in Mamaroneck or something like that. And we went into her dressing room, and she was still in her Peter Pan getup. And she had, a bowl full of fairy dust. Of course she did. She was Peter Pan. And before we were going to fly, she had to sprinkle some on us. Now, my mother, who hated sports, and banished my father from the living room, her parlor, every time he wanted to put on a game, um, had dressed us in skirts. I mean, matching skirts. It was just a nightmare. I wasn't self-conscious because I was always the, rowdy kid, and my sister liked paper dolls. Anyway, Mary Martin sprinkles fairy dust on us, and away we go, right? It's just the most amazing thing until the guy operating the equipment gets his finger stuck in one of the buttons, and we're stuck up there. We can't go anywhere for a while. It was pretty outrageous. Baseball at that time in my life sprinkled fairy dust on me every time I turned on the radio, every time I opened the newspaper back when, all the averages were totaled in on a Sunday newspaper, every time my dad would take me to a ballpark, which he hated doing because, of course, well, the Polo Grounds, the Giants were gone, and we went for the Mets eventually, but he hated take me to the Yankees, but he did it because I loved them, and because he was that kind of guy. And that's my association with baseball, is fairy dust. And somewhere along the line, the fairy dust disappeared. And so I started this book with the question, where did it go? What happened? In the fall of 2021, you may remember that Major League Baseball was described in glowing terms as dead, dying, desiccated, broken. Uh, I can't even remember all of them. My favorite one, of course, was the article in the New York Times op-ed page on the opening day 2022, where the recommendation was that it should be federalized. I thought, okay, and I thought, okay, between the Sandy Joe breakfast and this is the story. This is what I have to tell. And I thought of it as a historical document that I was going to write. And then lo and behold, you know, Rob realizes that they've got a problem here. It took them long enough. And he brings Theo Epstein on board to be the what I like to call the czar of making baseball fun again. And it was clear, as many of you I'm sure know, that they were testing new rules throughout 2021 at various levels of the game, and then more seriously in 2022. And then they announced them in September 2022. And I thought, oh shit, there goes my book. I can't write what I thought I was going to write. I threw out, a first draft, and decided that instead, what I was going to do was take a tour. It was going to be, you know, travels with Janie without the dog, except at the Cape League, where Betty, the dog, who's standing here soaking wet and getting me wetter, she's the mascot for the Orleans Firebirds. Thank you, Betty. Um, and I would go to every place that baseball was played that I could figure out would have a story to tell, and I would go and I would meet the people. And I just want to say up front, I have an opinion, which is that if you're honest with readers right up front, if you tell them what you're going to do, and therefore implicitly or explicitly what you're not going to do, that's the only fair way to write. So this is not a book about women's baseball. It is a book about women because it's a book about me. And it's a book about how I saw this game, which is very different than my male colleagues in the sports departments and in press boxes. Even yesterday, I was in Baltimore. I did the third inning on the Yankees broadcast with Dave Sims and Susan Walbin. Now that was a gas. Um, but so I explicitly admit and say I'm not doing that story here. This is about what happened to Major League Baseball and about baseball's place in the hearts of many Americans who used to maybe like it and really don't anymore. And what happened? And then, of course, Rob announces that he's going to step down at the end of his current term. And aside from that, receiving a lot of applause in a lot of quarters, it left the floor open for me. I said, okay, why not me? And so that was the impetus for the title, Make Me Commissioner. I know what's wrong and I can fix it. And the truth of the matter is, it isn't that hard to fix. A lot of things could be done very easily if they all weren't so goddamn pig-headed, male chauvinist idiots who can't agree on anything. And that drives me crazy. I can't bust heads. I can't make, but I can suggest some things, and you'd be shocked at the number of serious baseball officials who agree with me. I had to write for an opening for Market Watch, a thing. What did I get wrong? Right? And what the 45 seconds, what did I get wrong? And the answer is I couldn't get anything wrong because no matter what, I got up every day determined to write a sentence that would piss everybody off so much in Major League Baseball that no one would ever talk to me again. And I couldn't do it. I was wrong to think I could do it. Why? Because they all agree with me. So it was a joy. This is, in the reviews, people have understood my intent, which is really gratifying. This is a love story. This isn't me. This isn't a screed. It isn't me taking Rob to the woodshed or anybody else. Though I might have started with Bud and some of his predecessors. It's both a serious explanation of what went wrong, and a, dare I say, mirthful, wise ass, um, uh, you know, trip through baseball in 2023 to see how well the rule changes were working. Some of which I hate, some of which I think were great and were just 30 years too late. And then what else needs to be done? So that's the structure of the book. And I start at Driveline. Where else would you start? You would start at the first data-driven training center where they're responsible for a lot of what's going on in the way people swing a bat and throw a ball. And it's an infection that's spread through the bloodstream of baseball. And the result is, and this is one of the main parts of the book, is what are they going to do about these guys' arms? I mean, really, this, how can you run a business? I mean, they're all vaunted businessmen, right? Okay, they spent $1 billion of player salary sitting on the IL last year. $1 billion of injured players. Okay, if you're Oswaldo Cabrera and you twist your ankle at home plate trying to make a slide because you're that kind of player, okay, fine, go with God. But these arms that are, tearing like cheap wrapping paper, this is crazy. And 2/3 of that $1 billion is accounted for by elbow and arm injuries, which is insane. That's not a way to run a business. And it's not healthy, clearly, for the poor guys the UCL. I talked to a slight digression. I talked to the fellow Glenn Fleissig that many of you may know, who runs the American Sports Medicine Institute in Birmingham, which he founded with James Andrews, the former sports medicine doc for so many guys who had to have their elbows reconstructed. And he spent his life trying to understand it's not confusing. All the thousands of dollars, millions of dollars in research to try to figure out what the problem is. They throw the ball too hard too often. But saying that doesn't have an impact. So what did Glenn do? This is one of my favorite parts of this. Glenn went and purchased 20 arms and shoulders from a cadaver store where you can purchase. I had no idea that you could do this. 20 from young men who, of the age between 20 and 35, shoulders and elbows. And what he wanted to know is whether the UCLs in these big guys, who's the biggest pitcher we have now? It's hard to know because they're all so gigantic. Somebody name one, whoever, some 6'6" guy, 250 pounds throwing a ball like this. Are their UCLs bigger? I mean, we've got men who are making themselves bigger in every way they can, legally and illegally. And then they're putting all that force on this little thing in here. This little thing in here is, Glenn was trying to describe it to me. It's about an inch of material, of fleshy material. It's a kind of a tough ligament. It's kind of like a rubber band that you put around the claws of a lobster so it doesn't claw you to death while you're putting it to death. And those orange little rubber bands. And they're not, they don't stretch quite as much as people think they do. It's not like the old rubber bands that you leave in the light and they get rubbery and break as soon as you try to use them. And he looked thinking, well, what if they're bigger? Well, they're not bigger. Your UCL, my UCL, my dog's UCL, they have UCLs, are all the same. So when you think about the force that a person of that heft is bringing upon this motion, it's insane. How does it not break immediately is my question. And how is it that Major League Baseball has not done a damn thing both to protect the athletes, which they've invested in heavily, but also the health of the game? And this is what we all know that Clayton Kershaw announced his retirement yesterday, and my first reaction was, well, he's never going to get that perfect game, because in his first start in April 2022, when he had 7 innings of perfect ball, Dave Roberts deferred to the received wisdom on how much a pitcher should throw, particularly a pitcher who had been injured and it was cold and this and that and the next thing, and he took him out. Well, I said to Dave Roberts, hey, Dave, wouldn't it have been a good thing if America had woken up to a headline the next day that said Clayton Kershaw, the greatest pitcher, I won't even say just left-handed, the greatest pitcher of his generation, in his first game back, after not having thrown a ball in competition since the end of September 2021, starts the season with a perfect game? Wouldn't that be a reason to go to the ballpark? And he goes, uh-huh. He knew it. He said, he just started stammering because he said, because basically I can't say anything because I completely agree with you. And they have not figured out a way to understand or even accept that the health of the game as an entertainment has been damaged by the whole hog embrace of the efficiency driven, numbers driven version of baseball, which, yes, I understand that a walk and a home run is a more efficient way than hoping to play station to station, single, single, single. But what the analytics have done is taken the fairy dust out of baseball. The things that you used to say, I want to see that. Maybe if I go to that game, I'll see something like that. You're not going to see another perfect game anytime soon, if ever. And it was funny because the night after Dave and I had this conversation, he let Yamamoto stay in and in the ninth inning of a no hitter. And I looked at him later and I said, I was proud of him. I'm glad he lost it. I'm not glad he lost. I'm glad he lost it in the ninth inning, having been allowed to see how good he could be. The morning after Kershaw was pulled after 7 innings, Bill, the spaceman Lee, who is crazy and smart and honest, called me up and he was crying hysterically. And I said, Spaceman, why are you crying? And he said, because he didn't get the opportunity to find out how good he could be. And when you take that away from a competition that is also primarily theater, entertainment, something you're paying your entertainment dollars for, you're really, really compromising on its essential self. And that's what I think has happened to the game. In every way possible that you can think of, they've deferred to numbers that may be true 9 times out of 10. 9 times out of 10, Rajai Davis is not going to hit a home run in Game 7 of the 2016 World Series. But you never know because the analytics and the numbers can't tell you what's going to happen the 10th time. 10th time hasn't happened yet. You don't know. And baseball, more than any other game, and this was where the fairy dust is. Put people in situations. Yes, managers are supposed to put people in situations where they succeed, but they also put people in situations where they do the unexpected. And if you make every decision based on probabilities, what you end up doing is subverting the improbabilities that made baseball baseball. So now I have to take a gulp of vodka. No, I'm joking. And that's what I came to feel all the way through the book. It was that it had compromised itself. I mean, take the Ghost Runner. This is going to sound really conservative, and I am as far from conservative about anything as I can imagine. But putting a runner on second base because you want to get a plane earlier, I mean, give me a break. You know, why can't baseball games end the way baseball games are supposed to end? And
I'm with you on that.
my other hero, Roger Angel, in our last conversation, said, I hate modern baseball. The alleys are gone. Half of offensive baseball is gone. And for God's sakes, he said to me, will you do something about that ghost runner? And I said, yes, Roger, I will. What do you want me to do? And, baseball is better off without Marichal and what's his name? Warren Spahn at the stick in 1962, 16 innings of 0-0 baseball until Willie Mays hit a home run. No, that's part of what it made it great. I don't care if there were 3 people in the stands.
Yeah.
I don't care. Keep the lights on, God damn it, and keep playing. However, my compromise, because I think it's not going to be ever completely removed, is at least let it go through till you've gone through the order one more time. Don't put it in until the 13th inning. And you know why? I did the research. I can't believe they didn't do this research. 75% of extra inning games end after the 10th inning. So it's like legislating for a problem that doesn't really
That
exist.
hardly exists, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we do have a question that I think
Okay, here goes the vodka.
fits, no, yeah, help
Anybody
yourself.
else drinking?
Well, I'm drinking, but only water for now.
Oh, man.
But I can attest, there are other.
I'm a sports writer, I've
Oh,
got
yeah,
to
no, there's people
Yeah.
waving their beers. I see them.
Brava, brava.
Okay, so there's a question. Is the fact that a number of old school managers being brought back in the last several years. Is that a good sign that we're starting to find our way back, maybe?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, Boshi in Texas was going to be revered no matter what because he'd won so many World Series. He's a fabulous manager. Same with Francona going, to Cincinnati. After he got healthy, I saw him at the end of his run in Cleveland, and he was in so much pain. It was hard to see. Yes, and you're also seeing, interestingly, I can't make an argument for Craig Breslow right at the moment, but you are seeing, combination baseball player Ivy Leaguers, in general manager jobs, which at least, they have played the game. The thing that makes the old guys furious is being told how to do something. Yeah, Chris Young is really excellent. Is being told something to do by somebody who's never had a glove on his hand or her hand, as the case may be. And what it comes down to is this isn't just a baseball problem. I spent a lot of time with this wonderful woman, Peko Hosoi, who created, co-founder of the MIT Sports Analytics Lab. And so she is a numbers babe. She's a genius. She's a mathematician, engineer with a heart and, a humanist. And she came out to the Cape League with me and Betty, and we talked about what the information glut, the analytic numerical glut does to human brains. And it's doing it not just in baseball, but baseball is almost, she said, it's the canary in the coal mine. It's issuing a warning. This is what happens when you defer completely to the algorithm, to the AI, and abdicate the role of human judgment and experience and wisdom and say that doesn't matter because as Dusty Baker, I went to Dusty Baker and said, what happened to human judgment on a ball field? And he goes, I'm telling you, Jane, it don't mean shit anymore. It don't mean nothing to those guys. I got some punk ass guy upstairs coming down there and telling me that my eyes don't know what they're seeing. The eyes who had seen 50 years of baseball at every level. You don't know what you're seeing. And he says, well, my eyes know what they're seeing. And the punk guy will say, your eyes will lie to you. Well, I'll go with Dusty and Shakespeare on eyes. There has to be a way to accommodate to that which is human and the imagination and the prerogative of imagination and creativity is something that baseball has squandered. And the paradox is, I mean, everybody since baseball started doing it, everybody else is doing it now. Baseball had a head start thanks to Chadwick and his numbers. Baseball had what's called a clean data set long before anybody started counting downs and passing yardage. But the paradox, and it's kind of unfair, is that the analytics make football and basketball more exciting. Go for it on fourth down, right? Take let's reinvent basketball with a 3-point shot. And Stephen Curry rules the world. It doesn't do that in baseball. Where what it does in baseball is it undercuts the entertainment value of it. So there's the paradox and there's the rub. And so get rid of the ghost runner until at least the 13th inning. And in Jane's world, we're going to acknowledge, somebody said to me the other day, you're dying. Well, thanks. And of course, what he was saying was that the generation of baseball fans, of which I am one, I was conceived, and I know this to be fact, on the day that Mickey Mantle hit his first major league home run in Chicago, and born a couple of days after Mickey married Merlin, which he never wanted to do, but he did for his daddy because his daddy was dying. Uh, we're dying. This generation is on its way out. There are numbers that show, and baseball should take, great pride in them, that show that the average age of ticket buyers has gone down. There has been an increase in numbers of people since they came to terms with the pitch clock. But, they're bragging on a 10% increase. So 10% increase was in 2023, 1% last year. I think it may be better this year, which would be good. It's still not enough. You still have swaths of empty seats in every ballpark, because that's the other difference between baseball and these other games. They have so much more inventory of seats and of games, and they can't sell it all. They couldn't do it when it was all day games either. I mean, let's be real. I'm not saying that it was better before, but they need a new generation of fans. And in Jane's MLB, all kids 10 and under, accompanied by an adult, get in free. And can you imagine the PR coup it would be if one day Major League Baseball said, hey, guess what, guys? We've looked at the numbers and we understand where we are, and we really do want you to come back to the ballpark. So this is what we're going to do. So I had my friend Michael Haupert, who's a great economist, and he basically specializes in sports and numbers, particularly baseball, run some for me. Using the 2023 menu of the Chicago Cubs, if grandpa, grandma, mom, dad, whoever, um, took a kid to the ballpark and, let's say, was given a $12 seat, right? I'm not talking about giving the $300 seats behind home plate. StubHub can have their way with them. And you bought that kid a small hot dog, a small soda, maybe cotton candy or an ice cream, and a cap, it would have cost the Cubs $4 million in 2023. Now, far be it from me to say that $4 million is an insignificant number of dollars. It certainly isn't insignificant to me. But in reality, there isn't any one of those 30 baseball owners, no matter how much they cry poor house, for whom that isn't chump change. And that same year, 2023, the Cubs paid Jason Hayward $21 million to play for the Dodgers. So they have the money. It's a $12 billion industry. They're not poor. They have a problem of allocating finances, a big problem, but they're not poor. So that's one rule. I am not fond of the gambling. I hate it. It's not that I'm moralistic about it. Remember my grandfather. It's that I don't understand from a marketing point of view how you can beat your breast for a century saying, we're the sport that's better than this. We don't do this. We're going to keep Petey Rose out because he's a scumbag. And let me just say what a scumbag he is. And then turn around as soon as the Supreme Court says, oh, guess what? It's legal. It's really okay. And say, they never explained it. They never justified it. They gave Rob Manfred, caved as soon as the guy in the Oval Office said, oh, Pete belongs in the Hall of Fame. That's disgusting. And it's another way in which baseball has abandoned something that was essential to itself. I'm not saying they could have done something else. It was inevitable, but it doesn't mean they have to keep all the money as profit. They can take that money and they can use it to build major league training complexes for boys and girls in every major league city, so that kids who can't afford to play baseball or to learn to play baseball and to learn to do it the right way, because it's become a country club sport and more expensive than basketball or football or soccer or any of them, has a chance to play the game that we still like to call the national pastime. Ha ha. I can't hear you.
There's a lot of basketball going on in the gym, so I was keeping my
Oh,
my
I see. Oh, I see. Kind of.
microphone muted so we didn't hear the basketball game. Harriet Hamilton has her hand up, and Harriet, if you want to turn on your microphone, go ahead and ask your question, if you can.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi,
Yes.
Harriet. How are you?
Hi, how are you? I'm enjoying this so thoroughly, and
Thank
you
you.
hit a nerve with the country club game. Whereas before, the kids could just go across the street, walk outside the door, go down the road, and there was a game. I
Right.
mean, that's how my father started playing. It was just down the road, bunch of kids got together. What is it that Major League Baseball does not understand about that?
I think,
Because if
okay,
if
sorry.
they can get that back belonging, anybody can belong to baseball. What is it that I'm perplexed on that, and I don't understand why they don't understand
Well,
what is going on.
I think it's immoral and unethical and disgusting. I haven't had anything to drink, I swear to you. This is just me. This is just me. Um, that they parade around and again beat their breasts on every April 15th and celebrate Jackie Robinson Day and do nothing else, right? Now, I think they got it. I think they do realize they have a big problem. They may not think it's much more than a PR problem, but they know it's a problem because the percentage of Black American players has decreased from close to 20% to 6%. Now they have started making moves, right? They wouldn't tell me how much money that they've put into it, which of course that's typical. They did turn Dodgertown into the Jackie Robinson Training Complex, and they do offer all sorts of different kinds of programs for boys and girls, but it's for the select kids. Not everybody can go to the Jackie Robinson Training Complex. Um, there's a whole cohort of Black men, former major leaguers or minor leaguers. Um, I spent a great deal of time with Marquise Grissom, who's one of them, and who has produced some fairly important major league ball players like Lawrence Butler well, I was about to say Oakland, in Sacramento for the A's, and um, Money Mike in center field for the Braves, and the speedster, he's got about 7 guys who are playing in the majors. Um, how did he do it? With spit and gum and tape, because he didn't have any money to do it. He'd been soliciting funds and getting support from the community. Just this year, the town of College Park, Georgia, where he was using a public field, Bill Evans Field, for a lot of he runs the RBI program for the Braves, and in addition to the Marquise Grissom Baseball Association teams, um, Morehouse and Marquise offered $2 million to the city to redevelop it as a place specifically for Black kids. And no, the city decided to take a bid of $1.5 million from developers to cut up the field and make it into housing and, retail. So it's not, there's a lot of bad actors in this, but there's also a lot of money. I mean, that gambling money is $1 billion. It doesn't cost that much to create one of these academies. The Reds have a great one. Kansas City has one. There's one that's really good that the Rangers have. The first one was in Compton. It's where J.P. Crawford, Sabathia was there. Jimmy Rollins learned there. I mean, that was the first one that they put together, and that was in 2006 as an outgrowth of the beginning of RBI. But RBI didn't work the way they thought it was going to. It never developed the ground roots swell of kids because it wasn't funded and because they didn't take care of it. So again, my proposal is take some of that money and create an academy for every one of the teams. You know, have a place where there are enough fields. Give them the transportation to get there. And you know what? When they get there and they get the transportation, they also get transportation to go to games. My dog is crying. I think she needs to go out for a, I'll be right back. I'm going to let her out. Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
we'll hold the fort for you.
Okay, thank you. Hey, you want to go out? Come on, let's go. Let's go.
I do have one other question I'm going to ask Jane when she comes back about her views of the WPBL and see what she thinks about that. Yeah, there's a great picture of her dog on the back cover of her book, which I have the book, but I left the cover at home because I like to save the covers of hardbacks because I don't want them to get torn up and, messy while I'm reading them. So, but there is a good picture of Betty on the back.
There she is.
Ah, there we go. There she
Betty the
is.
dog in her
Yeah.
uniform.
She's a beaut.
She is, and nothing gets past her. And
That's good. That's good.
Eldridge Park, it's like baseball like it used to be. You take a picnic and you sit on the grass, and it's beautiful, and yet it's not immune to some of the worst financial things that are going on in baseball. And
Yeah, I encourage people to read your book because you talk a lot about that field and that park and kind of you do such a great job of bringing all these different elements of culture and society. I mean, as a historian, and there are several or many baseball historians in the group. I just consider myself a regular one, not per se a baseball historian, because I don't know enough to call myself that. But the way you bring in the culture and fit baseball into the whole larger picture of what's going on, the context of the times is really great. So we do have one question.
Sure.
I know there's a number of people who want to hear your answer to.
I can hang out if you want. I can hang out and answer the questions. I'm just sitting here. I don't-
Okay, well, so what do you think of the Women's Professional Baseball League?
Perry Barber asked me, not last night, maybe yesterday. I did another SABR thing. She said, maybe you could be commissioner of that league. Would you consider being commissioner? And I said, I think Kim Ng would be better. She said, but she's doing softball. I said, yeah, I better get the softball started and maybe, she'd move it back on to. I think there are a lot of women better qualified than I to do it. Sure, what the hell? Let's do it, guys. I'd be thrilled. I'll be commissioner of anything.
Well, maybe we could have one commissioner of both leagues.
That would be good.
I'm not thinking that's
I
going to
hated
happen.
playing softball. I gotta say, I really hated it.
Hey, and I grew up playing with the really big 16-inch softball because I grew up outside Chicago. So we played with what I would define as a real softball. 'Cause we're so big. But,
It's hard to throw those things, man.
oh, it is. It's a different
Brutal.
game.
It's brutal. It's brutal.
Well,
I do
I
have
see-
here, they made these balls for the book. Can you see
Oh, yeah. Nice.
they made all of 50 of them. And
Sweet.
and at first the publishers didn't know where you put the name of anything. So it's not on the sweet spot where it's supposed to be. And then somebody said, on the other hand, neither are you. Said, thank you very much. I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. So I see that Kat has her hand raised, so
Come on,
I'll let
Kat,
her
what you
ask
got
a
for me?
question.
Hey, Jane.
Hey, babe, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Listen, I got to tell you, felt like I was in a Baptist church. I kept wanting to stand up and say, preach. And amen. And I mean, yes, yes. And thank you for saying those things. I would never have thought um, to describe my feeling about baseball right now as having it lost the fairy dust. But that is exactly what it is. And, we can, stats are important and analytics are important. But by God, when Hunter Green came very close to a perfect game last night, I am out of my seat, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because it's possible, because it's possible. And that is one of the reasons I do what I do when it comes to women's baseball, because women need to have that possibility too. And you talked about wanting to still call it America's game. Well, you can't call it America's game if 50% of Americans can't play it. And
Yep.
it is time to freaking step up. And you got my vote for commissioner, babe.
Thank you, Kat. That means the world to me. It really does. I got to ask you guys a question. Can you do me a favor, all of you people, you good people? Can you buy this book as Christmas and Hanukkah presents? Buy
Already
them for
done.
your girlfriends, buy them for your boyfriends, buy them for your fathers, your sons. Your daughters. I don't care. Just I want to get
Already,
this religion out.
already done, Jane.
Thank you, baby. I really appreciate it. The best review I got for of all things is from the Wall Street Journal. When actually, Tara Sullivan in the Globe just did me right. And I was glad that they got the humor.
Yeah.
It's not. It is a serious book, but
Yep.
it's funny. I
Yep.
can't help it. I'm sorry. I can't help it.
And
And
let me just say, I'm listening to it, and I
oh,
love that you are reading it.
I've got that baseball voice. I was
And
telling
that's right.
girls in school,
Makes
you
me
got
want
a
to have a
radio
beer and a
voice,
hot dog.
girl.
Yep.
I wasn't going to do it. They didn't want me to do it, and they had somebody else lined up. And
Mm.
I went to the the studio, and the lovely young woman who was the producer said, "Why are you not reading this?" I said, "They didn't want me to,"
Yeah.
and she said, "Why?" I said, "I'm not a pro. What can I
Yeah.
say?"
Well,
She said, "No, it's such a personal book
yep.
that it has to be." Can
Yes.
can I read you guys one thing from here? May I? Or are we
Yes.
too far over?
Please.
No, go ahead.
Um, of all the Kat, don't tell them about don't tell them yet about the ball from Brady Anderson. Okay.
No, no.
Okay. I won't make this long. Okay. Baseball made me different from all the other little girls at East Hills Elementary School, which by junior high school did not exactly thrill me. Pretty Gwen Morris explained why I wasn't getting bar mitzvah invites. The boys think you like baseball more than boys, which was probably true. Baseball accompanied me to the synagogue at the Concourse Plaza Hotel up the hill from the ballpark. That's the stadium for you who don't know. With the aid of my grandmother's too big mink coat. I celebrated the high holidays with Sammy Esposito, the glove she bought me off the hand of a mannequin in Saks Fifth Avenue's window, um, and a spiffy red plastic Motorola transistor radio with a Daisy speaker that had taken up residence beneath my pillow. Baseball forged an unlikely alliance between me and my father, who as a boy had watched Giants games from an outcropping of Manhattan schist known as Coogan's Bluff, high above the Polo Grounds. At age 10 in 1927, he descended the heights to the vast greenness below, where he was anointed water boy for the New York football Giants. The coveted post was a perk of my grandfather's career as a bookie and rum runner. Baseball found me on a deeply wooded road in the Ardennes forest one spring night in 1970 when I was 18, a senior in high school, living, ready girls, as in a Belgian convent. My parents were worried about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. In the clearing at the top of the hill, I heard the crackle of static on the driver's right radio, tuned, I presume, to Armed Forces radio. And then, holy cow, it was the scooter, Phil Rizzuto, calling the game from the big ballpark in the Bronx. The sounds and rhythms of the game had made themselves at home in my dreams, and they never left. And there's the fairy dust. How did I hear that game? I mean, how did that come off the radio in the Ardennes forest? It was amazing. Yeah, it's been I guess it's become my life's work, basically, is what I would say. Um, but the humor of baseball has gotten eaten by the analytics, you know? Get over it. Come on, guys. It's funny. It's funny to fail. And you fail in baseball. Joe Torre said probably the best quote in the book. Well, there's two of them. You know, Joe Torre said, they're trying to make an imperfect game perfect, and I resent it. And I completely agree with him. And my other favorite was Terry Pendleton, the Zaftig former third baseman. Zaftig is Yiddish for chubby. And he said, I was talking to him about the number of players who get injured. You know, those groin pulls are really a bitch. And they're a result of how hard they're swinging, largely. And he said, we were better off fat. You can't pull fat. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Terry Pendleton. Yeah, it was, the best thing about it was, you know, all the baseball people that I got to meet and spend time with. And
Of all the people that you talk to, all the different groups of people that you talk to, you know, players and managers and fans and writers, all of that, was there one group that gave you the best insight or that you thought added the most to what you already knew, gave you a different perspective? Or was it just the combination of all of it?
it's kind of like a mosaic with
Okay.
their thoughts and stories and anecdotes. I mean, when Buck Showalter said, you know, described a Mets factotum coming down and telling him why he couldn't play Brandon Nimmo the next night after he'd had this great game in which he'd made spectacular catches in the alleys. And they have these cards that tell them how far they've run and how fast. And if it's a red card and a green card, red card, they ran a lot. So Buck looks at this guy and he says, are you telling me that this guy who's like an Energizer bunny for this team, this guy who had the best game of the year, I should sit him down because he played too well? Is that what you're telling me? Yes, that's what they were saying. And Buck tells me this story. He goes, it's the castration of the American manager.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Buck is very smart and he
Yeah.
should still be a manager, frankly. I mean,
Did you talk to any owners?
owners, yes, I did, but they don't want to talk, not on the record.
Uh,
And one of the pleasures of dying, as I've been informed I am dying, is that I just didn't have to tolerate any bullshit. I didn't have to talk to people I didn't want to have to talk to. I asked for an interview with Rob Manfred at the very beginning of this. Um, I was never given an interview with Rob Manfred, and I didn't pursue it. It's like, you know, what's he going to say? You're wrong. Yeah,
I disagree.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to. I'm too old for that. You know, I wanted to talk to people I trusted. I wanted to talk to people I knew would speak honestly
Honest. Yeah.
and you know, in their own voices. I mean, spending time with Rich Hill 45-year-old pitcher who, pitched for the Royals a bit this summer, before they cut him summarily because baseball's such a nice game. And he's like, the reason he was pulled out of his perfect game, is by Dave Roberts in 2016 is, thank you, Betty. Because he developed blisters all the time on his middle finger. So I go up to Davy Roberts and I said, I have to tell you, Davy, I looked at his middle finger. I examined it. I took pictures of his middle finger. And he's just looking, no, really? I said, and I said, I really didn't see much, I have to say. And Rich was telling me, I pissed on it, I used this on it, but now they got a laser and that kind of works well on it. But then he's talking about the obligation to entertain. And that's the problem that I think is probably easiest to address.
Yeah.
And it's Dave Roberts who said, you remember when you were a kid, you would go early when the gates opened so that you could watch infield practice, which nobody takes anymore, or batting practice because you wanted to see Mickey, in my case, tee off on batting practice slop. You can't do that anymore. Why? Because they've inverted the order. The visiting players go last. Why? Because they're coming from furthest. In the case of the Yankees yesterday, Minnesota scheduled a night game for them for Wednesday night. Yeah, Wednesday night. And so the Yankees didn't get into Baltimore until about 6 a.m. That's crazy. That's insane. They were sleepwalking, but then again, they were only playing the Orioles, so they only had to be half awake to win 7-0. So Dave said you reverse it again, reverse it. I mean, how many people became fans because they could go see Stan Musial, at batting practice, or Ted Williams, or Mickey Mantle, or Aaron. I mean, imagine Aaron Judge. And there has to be somebody to say to the players, might be Tony Clark, and I don't know that he's going to do it. You know what? You have an obligation. You can't just go hide downstairs with your traject machine, which allows you to bat against an avatar or the starting pitcher that night. You know what? Avatars don't make mistakes.
True.
There's a reason that maybe you should go outside on the field. And one of them is because the people have a right to see you. And if you're serious about growing the game and regrowing the game, do it. So I had this fight with Mike Rizzo, who I actually adore, curmudgeon that he is, rough guy that he was, and he's going to be at Politics and Prose with me next week. Kind of his coming out appearance since being canned by the learners, who are among the worst owners in baseball. And he's like really nervous. And I said, don't worry, I'm going to go right out there, Mike, and I'm going to say nobody could win with that ownership, which is true, by the way. But turn it around. Somebody has to say to them, this is part of your job. It's not optional. You have to show up for people. So the fight Riz and I had, I said, one of the things you asked about the bananas sensed, he honed in on this alienation of affection between baseball and fans. And one of the reasons is that Jesse Cole got it, was you could see that there was this distance. It's physical in terms of all the barriers they put up, and it's psychological. Joey Votto, who's a lovely guy and was a great player in Cincinnati for his entire career, had one of his, it was, if not his last year, the second to last year, was their Roberto Clemente Award nominee. And he's out there on the mound at Great American Ballpark in a Clemente jersey. And he's so old school that it made him uncomfortable to be wearing a Pirates jersey, which I think is lovely. So he goes, he says, I can make somebody's day. I can do something with this. He goes to his locker, he takes off that jersey, he puts on a Barry Larkin jersey, and he goes up to the top concourse. And he just starts walking around. And he went with great apprehension, trepidation. What were they going to do? Was he going to be safe? I mean, all these people want to do is love on him. I mean, come on, right? It's among other things, it's Cincinnati. But I said there should be a designated signer at every goddamn game. Wander through the stands, say hello. The Cincinnati play-by-play guy, when the cameras finally recognized him, said, "What's he doing out there?" And Barry Larkin, to his everlasting credit, said he's making friends. And Joey told me later, I was charmed. I was charmed. And let me just say, nobody ever pulled a groin muscle shaking hands. It just doesn't happen. And if you're worried about your, valuable ass getting in trouble, take a security guard with you. Okay? There are ways to make this doable and safe. And you're getting paid on that 60-day IL, by the way.
Good point, good point. Well, Leslie, I think maybe I should turn it over to you for
Yeah.
thanking
So-
Oh,
Jane.
I wanted to tell you one more thing about the bananas, okay? This is my last.
Okay.
story. That they go into the stands all the time. And though for the life of me, I don't know how they do it. And I'm not sure that they do it in the big ballparks that they're now, filling. But they certainly do it in Savannah and when they play in the little, bandboxes. And I found that iteration of them much more charming, frankly, than this one. But so I was with a party animal. Those are the guys in pink, whose job is basically to take their uniforms off because it's a very peculiar combination of cheesecake and family-friendly stupidity. Fat jiggling and cheesecake. It's like anyway, it works. So there's this very hunky guy in his pink iridescent jersey, and he climbs into the stands, and he's sitting there with this beautiful boy, probably 7 or 8, something like that. And he asks the kid to sign his jersey. And whoa, hands him a pen, sign my jersey. I never understood till that moment that the reason that the Bananas yellow uniforms look so dingy isn't because they're not cleaned. It's because they've had kids write all over them. And so the kid, think about that moment and what it says in terms of who's important to who, right?
Yeah.
And it's saying, you matter to me,
Yep.
And the assistant head coach, a retired lawyer, yes, it was a fairy dust moment. Looked at me, his name is Adam Virant. He looked at me and said, that kid just became a baseball fan. Yes, that's exactly.
Absolutely.
And those things are not hard to do. There's a lot of things that they could do very fast to improve people's opinion of them and enjoyment of them and affection for them, right? I mean,
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Well,
I
thank
can't-
you so much
my pleasure.
Yeah.
for
I
being
really-
here.
So I just want to say thank you, Catherine, for helping lead us through
Thank
this.
you, Catherine.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Jane, for sharing all your insights. If you've been reading the chat, everybody
I
is reading
haven't
your
been
book.
reading. I haven't been able
So
to
everybody's
follow-
reading your book. Everybody's going to be giving your book. Everybody is, because that's why we're all here, right? We all still, in our heart of hearts, love baseball and want to see it get back to what we loved. I also never thought about it as a fairy dust moment, but I'm never going to forget that because there are so many of them. But your last remark for me really hit it. It's that and I've heard players, like players who get it, say it's not about us. Without the fans, we got nothing. So we're here for them. And when and it feels like we've forgotten that. And that's what hearing you. And so I just want to say thank you. This was a great kickoff to our conference this weekend. You're seeing, and so I hope you get a chance to read through some of the comments, but
I will. I plan
and
to. If anybody, you have my email. If anybody has questions, wants
yeah,
to talk or anything, let me know.
are you okay with me sharing it? Right. I'll just do it right
Yeah,
now.
sure. Because I'm even in the phone book, which is like nobody has phone books, but I'm in the phone
There you
book
go.
that still exists.
And if you haven't read Jane's other books, now you know that you need to, because what you heard tonight, particularly when she was reading that passage, you're going to get that in all of her books. They're amazing. And as Catherine said, meticulous research, a language skill that, and so we thank you so much, Jane, for coming to join us and kicking us off.
I love you, baseball people. I love you all.
And so if you're free any of the rest of the weekend, Jane, we're going to be here all day tomorrow and all day Sunday. You're welcome to join us.
Thank you.
We start tomorrow
I'm
morning.
actually having my book party this weekend.
Oh, well,
And
good.
thank you. And I have to go take one of these baseballs. These lovely friends of mine are making this big party, and I ordered a big centerpiece for them for the table, and they're going to put one of these baseballs in the middle of it.
Okay.
And I'm very really that's a fairy dust moment for me.
There
Um,
you go. Well,
I will tell you one little gossipy thing before I go. I was talking
okay.
to Mr. Koufax just the other night. Have to call him to
Okay.
say Happy New Year every year, right? And also I forgot, I didn't know if I had his latest address to give him a book. And we were talking about pitching. And he said, I threw 300 innings. I went, I know. And he said, and I threw 200 pitches in some games. And I said, I know. And he said, and how do you think I did it? I said, well, you tell me. He said, expectations.
Mm,
If you're expected to pitch like that, you're going to pitch like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
Um,
good
That's a
point.
good point.
If you're expected to throw 5.2 innings and,
Yep.
disappear for another 5 days, that's what you're going to do.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
somewhere
that's
between the
true.
two is is a reasonable compromise.
Right.
But
Yeah.
God knows the diminution, if that's the right way to say it, of
Yeah.
start pitching is I think the most radical and
Mm-hmm.
worst change in the character of the game.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yep.
That's a great reminder to us and a great way to, so we hope your book party goes well,
Thank you.
and to everyone
Sorry you
else.
can't all come. Somebody asked me about
Yeah, we would love
politics
to,
and
but
proses.
you
We're
know,
there.
Politics and
we'll
proses
be
in
thinking of you.
Washington, in
And
case any of you
yeah.
are here, local.
Yeah, so tomorrow, everybody, just a reminder, we start at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, and 7 Pacific, and 10 o'clock China. I think I got them all right. And so we're looking forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. There's all kinds of, from 10 o'clock, we're going to be on with a few breaks all the way through till 8:30 in the evening. So come and join us as you can. Yep, 7. We're trying, and Sunday is 8 o'clock, if that makes you feel better. We're slightly later on Sunday. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. Thank you
You guys
again,
do
Jane.
great
Thank you,
work.
Catherine.
I
Thank
just
you,
want to say,
Jane.
you guys do great work, and
Thank you.
We really appreciate that, Jane. And good luck as you continue on, as you get this book out, and hopefully change some thoughts and opinions. I just want to tell you, my Mets are losing.
oh man, okay, what's wrong with the Mets? Let's go
Pitching.
there, huh? Pitching?
No, no. At the moment, it's hitting. Actually, their pitching is,
It's neither.
but
It's neither.
yeah, I know. I try to put it in that perspective, but we're still in the hunt. So have a wonderful evening, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow morning.
Good night,
Cubs
everybody.
are
Thanks,
winning. Oh, I didn't want to hear that. That's not nice.
What are the Yankees doing?
I don't know.
Down
Okay.
one,
Jane,
nothing
I'm
to
a New
the
Yorker too,
Orioles.
but I'm the Mets fan, not the New York
My
Yankees
dad,
fan.
okay, Leslie, here's the story for you. All right, ready?
Okay.
So
Yes, I'm ready.
My dad, Mort the Sport is how I knew him.
Okay.
He was a very short, fat Jew with great eye-hand coordination. Let's just put it that way. But
Okay.
he was a wonderful guy, and he fell and broke his hip, which is what led to his death. But he had a good long life, so I'm not complaining, and I don't think either really was he, except that he thought he was Peter Pan, and the rules of mortality didn't pertain to him. But anyway, the only thing I could do to assuage his pain while he was waiting for the surgery that he ultimately didn't survive, was to have me read him game stories about the Mets.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's August 2003. It's not
Okay.
a pretty time for the Mets.
No, it was not.
And so I read the Post, I read the Times, I read Newsweek, Newsday, excuse me. And it's just getting worse and worse. And finally they come to get him. And he looks at me, and I swear to you, these are his last words to me on this mortal coil. Oi, the Mets.
An appropriate phrase.
Yeah.
I'm just going to change my phrasing now because I say a different version of that all the time, but I like that better
Oi.
because it is true. They
Yeah.
make
Yes.
well, I mean, they make me crazy.
Yep.
They make me crazy, but
Yes,
I love them anyway.
I have it. If you want to know, it's to discuss it sometime. I think I know what's going on with them. And it's
Okay,
not any
I
of
will
that.
have to call you and we'll chat, Jane.
You got it, babe. All right. Good
All
night. I have
right,
to go walk Betty.
awesome.
Talk to you later.
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks
everybody.
See
again,
you all
Jane.
tomorrow. We're
Good to see you,
excited.
Kat.
Good
Take
to
care.
see you too.